I never thought I'd be sharing my story on Reddit, but here I am, desperately seeking advice. My name is Lisa, 28F, and I've been married to Jacob, 30M, for about 18 months now. We met during our residency at Memorial Hospital, where we both work as nurses in the intensive care unit. When I first met Jacob, I was instantly drawn to his easygoing nature and infectious laugh. We bonded over long shifts, shared gallows humor, and our mutual love for obscure 80s movies. Jacob was different from the guys I dated before. He was ambitious but kind, confident but never arrogant. We started dating after a few months of flirtatious banter and stolen glances across the nurses' station. Our relationship progressed quickly. Within a year, we were engaged, and 6 months later, we tied the knot in a small ceremony with our closest friends and family. I remember feeling on top of the world that day, thinking I'd found my perfect partner. But looking back, there were signs I chose to ignore. During our engagement, Jacob's mother, Diane, 55F, seemed overly involved in our wedding planning. She had an opinion on everything from the venue to the color of the napkins. I brushed it off as excitement, telling myself she was just happy for her son. The real problems started soon after our wedding. Diane's presence in our lives became increasingly intrusive. She'd call Jacob multiple times a day, often during our dinner or when we were spending time together. She'd ask him to run errands for her or help with household chores, even though she lived just a few blocks away and was perfectly capable of doing these things herself. I tried to be understanding at first. Jacob was an only child, and I knew he felt responsible for his mother, especially since his father passed away 5 years ago. But as time went on, it became clear that Diane saw me as a threat to her relationship with Jacob. She'd make snide comments about my cooking or the way I kept our apartment. Once, she even criticized the way I folded Jacob's laundry, saying he preferred his shirts folded differently. What hurt the most was Jacob's reaction to these incidents. He never stood up for me. He'd laugh it off or tell me I was being too sensitive. When I tried to talk to him about it, he'd say, "That's just how mom is. You need to get used to it." It felt like he was choosing his mother over me, and it stung. Things got worse when I got pregnant 3 months ago. We hadn't been actively trying, but we weren't preventing it either. I was excited to share the news with Jacob, imagining his face lighting up with joy. But his reaction was lukewarm at best. He seemed more concerned about how we'd manage financially, even though we both have stable jobs and good salaries. When we told Diane about the pregnancy, her reaction was overwhelming. She immediately started talking about how she'd need to move in with us to help with the baby. I was horrified at the idea, but Jacob thought it was great. He didn't even consult me before agreeing to it. As my pregnancy progressed, I noticed Jacob becoming more distant. He started spending more time at work, picking up extra shifts that he didn't need to take. When he was home, he was always on his phone, texting or scrolling through social media. Our intimacy dwindled, and he rarely showed any affection towards me. I tried to talk to him about it, but he'd brush off my concerns. He'd say he was just tired from work or stressed about becoming a father. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was going on. Last week, my suspicions were confirmed. I caught Jacob having a hushed conversation on the phone late at night. When I asked who he was talking to, he got defensive and said it was none of my business. His reaction set off alarm bells in my head. That night, while Jacob was in the shower, I did something I'm not proud of. I looked at his phone. I know it was a violation of his privacy, but I felt like I had no other choice. What I found broke my heart. There were messages between Jacob and his ex-girlfriend, Emily, 29F. They were discussing meeting up for coffee and reminiscing about their past relationship. Some of the messages were flirtatious, with Emily saying how much she missed him. I confronted Jacob about the messages as soon as he got out of the shower. He exploded in anger, accusing me of invading his privacy and being paranoid. He stormed out of the house and didn't come back until the next day. When he returned, he acted like nothing had happened and refused to discuss the incident. Now, I'm at a loss. I feel like I'm living with a stranger. The man I married, the one who used to look at me with such love and adoration, seems to have disappeared. In his place is someone cold and distant, someone who prioritizes his mother and possibly his ex-girlfriend over his pregnant wife. I come from a conservative South Asian background where divorce is frowned upon. My parents had an arranged marriage and have been together for 35 years. They've always taught me that marriage is forever, that you work through your problems no matter what. The thought of leaving Jacob fills me with shame and fear. What will my family say? Will they blame me for not being a good enough wife? But at the same time, I'm terrified of bringing a child into this situation. I want my baby to grow up in a loving, stable home. I'm worried that if I stay, I'll be subjecting my child to a toxic environment. I need advice. Am I overreacting? Should I try to make this work for the sake of our unborn child? Or should I consider leaving before things get worse? I feel so alone and confused. Any insight or suggestions would be appreciated. Update 1. It's been about a month since my original post, and I wanted to update you all on what's been happening. First, I want to thank everyone who took the time to read my story and offer advice. Your support gave me the courage to take action. After much soul-searching and rereading all of your comments, I decided to have a serious talk with Jacob. I spent days preparing what I wanted to say, writing down my thoughts so I wouldn't get sidetracked or let my emotions take over. I chose a time when we were both off work, asked Jacob to sit down with me, and laid out all my concerns, his mother's interference, his emotional distance, and the inappropriate contact with his ex. I told Jacob about how lonely and neglected I've been feeling. I reminded him of the promises we made to each other on our wedding day, how we vowed to be partners in everything. I explained that if we were going to make our marriage work, things needed to change. We needed to set boundaries with his mother, he needed to be more present in our relationship, and he needed to cut off contact with Emily. Jacob's reaction shocked me. Instead of being understanding or apologetic, he became defensive and angry. He accused me of trying to come between him and his family. He said I was being selfish and hormonal because of the pregnancy. When I brought up the messages with Emily, he said I was blowing things out of proportion and that they were just friends. The argument escalated quickly. Jacob said some hurtful things that I never thought I'd hear from him. He told me that he felt trapped in our marriage and that he wasn't sure if he was ready to be a father. He even suggested that maybe we should consider other options for the pregnancy. I was devastated. This was not the man I married, the one who once talked excitedly about having a big family. In the heat of the moment, I told Jacob I needed some time away to think. I packed a bag and went to stay with my best friend, Megan, 27F. Jacob didn't try to stop me. In fact, he seemed almost relieved, which hurt more than anything else. Megan has been my rock through all of this. We've been friends since college, where we were roommates. She was there for me during my first heartbreak, when I failed a crucial exam, and when I doubted my ability to make it through nursing school. Now, once again, she's providing a safe haven when I need it most. While at Megan's, I received a call from my obstetrician's office. They had the results of some routine tests, and something came up abnormal in my liver function tests. The doctor wanted me to come in for a follow-up appointment as soon as possible. I was worried about the test results, but I didn't want to tell Jacob. I felt like I couldn't trust him anymore, and I was afraid he might use this information against me somehow. Instead, I asked Megan to accompany me to the appointment. The doctor ran more tests and asked me a lot of questions about my diet, lifestyle, and any medications I might be taking. A few days after the doctor's appointment, I got a call from Jacob. His voice sounded different, softer, almost remorseful. He said he wanted to talk and work things out. Despite my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a nearby cafe. When I arrived, I was surprised to see Diane there with him. Jacob said he had asked his mother to mediate our discussion. The conversation was a disaster from the start. Diane dominated the discussion, criticizing my behavior and telling me how I needed to be a better wife. She brought up incidents from months ago, things I thought Jacob and I had moved past. She talked about how I was tearing their family apart, how Jacob had changed since he met me. All the while, Jacob sat there silently, nodding along with everything his mother said. When I tried to express my feelings, Diane interrupted me, saying I was being disrespectful. She said that in their family, they believe in working through problems, not running away from them. The irony of her statement, given Jacob's recent behavior, was not lost on me. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and told them both that I was done. I said I couldn't be in a marriage where I was constantly disrespected and where my husband couldn't stand up for me. I took off my wedding ring, placed it on the table, and walked out. As I was leaving the cafe, my phone rang. It was my doctor's office again. The follow-up tests showed that my liver function was still abnormal, and they wanted me to come in for more tests. The doctor sounded concerned and mentioned the possibility of medication-induced liver damage. I'm scared and confused. I don't know what's going on with my health, and I'm worried about the baby. I'm also dealing with the reality that my marriage is likely over. I've moved in with Megan temporarily while I figure out my next steps. I know I have a long road ahead of me, but I'm determined to stay strong for myself and my baby. I'm considering reaching out to a lawyer to discuss my options regarding separation and possibly divorce. I'm also focusing on my health and trying to stay calm despite all the stress. My parents don't know about any of this yet. I'm dreading telling them. In our culture, divorce is seen as a failure, especially for the woman. I can already imagine my mother's disappointed face, my father's silence. But I also know that I can't live my life for them. I have to do what's best for me and my child. Thank you all for your support. Your words of encouragement have meant more than you know. I'll update again when I have more information about my health situation and what's next for me. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, and things have taken an unexpected turn. I want to thank everyone for their continued support and advice. It's been invaluable during this difficult time. First, let me address the health concerns. After multiple tests and consultations, the doctors finally figured out what was causing my abnormal liver function. It turns out I had a rare condition called intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy, ICP. It's a liver disorder that can occur during pregnancy and can be dangerous for the baby if left untreated. Thankfully, it was caught early, and I'm now on medication to manage it. The diagnosis was a relief in some ways, but it also added to my stress. The doctor explained that ICP can increase the risk of premature birth and other complications. I'll need to be monitored closely for the remainder of my pregnancy. It's a lot to take in, especially given everything else that's going on. During all of this, Jacob has been conspicuously absent. He hasn't reached out once to check on me or the baby. His silence hurt more than I expected. Despite everything that's happened, a part of me still hoped he would step up and be there for us. However, his silence was broken when I received a letter from a lawyer representing him. The letter stated that Jacob was seeking a divorce and wanted to discuss the terms of our separation. It also mentioned that Jacob was questioning the paternity of the baby and wanted a DNA test. This accusation felt like a slap in the face. I have never been unfaithful to Jacob, and for him to suggest otherwise was deeply hurtful. It made me wonder if he was projecting his own guilt onto me, considering his secretive behavior with his ex-girlfriend. I decided to hire my own lawyer to protect my interests and those of my unborn child. My lawyer advised me to gather all financial documents and any evidence of Jacob's behavior, including the messages I saw between him and his ex. As I was going through our shared computer, I stumbled upon something shocking. I found emails between Jacob and his mother, discussing a plan to get rid of me. They talked about ways to make me miserable enough to leave on my own, including Diane moving in with us and Jacob deliberately neglecting me. What disturbed me most was a conversation where Jacob mentioned slipping something into my food to take care of the pregnancy problem. I felt sick to my stomach reading this. Could Jacob have been trying to harm our baby? Was this related to my liver issues? I immediately forwarded these emails to my lawyer and filed a police report. The authorities are now investigating Jacob and Diane for potential criminal actions. In light of this discovery, my lawyer is pushing for an emergency hearing to address the safety concerns and to secure a restraining order against both Jacob and Diane. We're also discussing the possibility of pressing charges for attempted harm to me and the baby. I'm still processing all of this information. It's hard to believe that the man I married could be capable of such malicious behavior. I keep thinking back to our early days together, trying to pinpoint when things changed. Was it all an act from the beginning? Or did something shift along the way? I'm grateful that I trusted my instincts and left when I did. Who knows what might have happened if I had stayed? The thought of it makes me shudder. I finally worked up the courage to tell my parents about the situation. Their reaction surprised me. Instead of the disappointment and shame I expected, they were supportive. My mother cried and apologized for ever making me feel like I couldn't come to them with my problems. My father, usually so stoic, told me how proud he was of me for standing up for myself and my baby. Their support has been a bright spot in all of this darkness. I'm focusing on staying healthy for my baby and preparing for single motherhood. Megan has been an incredible support, helping me look into childcare options and accompanying me to my prenatal appointments. I'm also looking into support groups for single mothers and survivors of domestic abuse. It's a lot to deal with, but I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm trying to stay positive and focus on the future. I know it won't be easy, but I'm determined to create a good life for myself and my child. I'll update again once I have more information about the legal proceedings and my plans moving forward. Thank you all for your support during this challenging time. Update 3. It's been a month since my last update, and I wanted to share the latest developments in my situation. Once again, I'm incredibly grateful for the support and advice I've received from this community. The investigation into Jacob and Diane's actions has progressed. The police took my allegations seriously and obtained warrants to search Jacob's and Diane's properties. They found evidence corroborating the emails I discovered, including notes detailing their plans and some suspicious substances that are currently being analyzed. Both Jacob and Diane were brought in for questioning. Jacob initially denied everything, but when confronted with the evidence, he broke down and confessed. He admitted to trying to sabotage my pregnancy by adding small amounts of a substance to my food, under the guidance of his mother. Diane, however, has maintained her innocence and hired a separate lawyer. The district attorney's office is now preparing to file charges against both of them for attempted harm to me and the unborn child. My lawyer is working closely with the prosecutors to ensure that all the evidence is properly presented. On the divorce front, given the criminal charges, Jacob's lawyer has reached out to discuss a settlement. They're now offering a much more favorable agreement, likely in hopes of gaining some leniency in the criminal case. My lawyer advises that we're in a strong position to negotiate. As for my health and the baby, I'm happy to report that the medication for the ICP is working well. My liver function has improved, and the baby is developing normally. I'm now in my second trimester and starting to feel more energetic. I even felt the baby kick for the first time last week. It was a magical moment that reminded me of why I'm fighting so hard. I've moved out of Megan's place and found a small apartment of my own. It's been challenging to adjust to living alone, especially with the pregnancy, but it's also liberating. I'm slowly rebuilding my life and focusing on creating a safe, loving environment for my child. My parents have been incredibly supportive throughout this process. My mom comes over every weekend to help me prepare the nursery. My dad has been accompanying me to all my legal meetings, providing moral support. Their presence has made this difficult time a bit easier to bear. I've also started attending a support group for women who've experienced similar situations. It's been incredibly helpful to connect with others who understand what I'm going through. We share our stories, offer advice, and support each other through the healing process. It's comforting to know that I'm not alone in this journey. Looking back, I can see now how manipulated I was throughout my relationship with Jacob. His mother's influence was far more sinister than I initially realized. I'm working on forgiving myself for not seeing the signs earlier and for staying as long as I did. It's a process, and some days are harder than others, but I'm making progress. At work, I've been open with my supervisors about my situation. They've been understanding and have adjusted my schedule to accommodate my legal appointments and doctor visits. My colleagues have rallied around me, offering support and even organizing a baby shower. Their kindness has been overwhelming and has reminded me that there are good people in the world. I've started keeping a journal, writing letters to my unborn child. I tell them about my hopes and dreams for their future, about the strength I'm finding in myself that I never knew I had. It's therapeutic and helps me focus on the positive aspects of my life. The road ahead is still long, but I'm feeling more confident and empowered every day. I'm excited about becoming a mother and giving my child all the love and support they deserve. I know it won't be easy, but I'm prepared for the challenges that lie ahead. This experience has taught me so much about myself and about the importance of trusting my instincts. I'm learning to set boundaries, to speak up for myself, and to prioritize my own well-being and that of my child. Thank you all for being there through this journey. Your support has meant more than you know. I'll update again once the legal proceedings are finalized and when the baby arrives. Here's to new beginnings and a brighter future.